Good evening, everybody, or morning, afternoon, whatever it may be for you. I've had a habit of filming these in my backyard earlier in the week and saying, I know that it's supposed to be dreary on Thursday. Today we had the reversal that I believe tomorrow, this is Wednesday night for me, and I believe tomorrow is going to be a wonderful day. I was not in the backyard this afternoon. Because it was either raining or just cold and windy and less attractive. And I should begin by with full disclosure that last week when we had our staff meeting and Monsignor suggested for the month of May or for this first week of May that we each choose an image of Mary that really kind of resonated for us. I was very lost and unsure of where I would go as far as an image. But what happened was I did have a memory of a story I heard a long time ago that about kind of images of our faith and of God that I've always held close to my heart. And in thinking about that, it made my image of Mary a little clearer for me. So let me tell you the one story, and I'll kind of double back to the image of Mary that is striking for me. The story is really one that is not my own. I heard it years ago from a Jesuit priest, nearly 20 years ago, at a conference, and he was sharing his experience of missionary work in Mexico, and he was working with this family, this woman who, I shouldn't say working, she was a friend of his, and he would go occasionally for dinner at her house or just meet with her, and they'd leave from her house, and he would go in, and above her mantle she had an image of Jesus, and it was the image that many of us have seen, and if you haven't, I can describe it easily enough, that it was the image of Jesus, just the close-up of just his head with the crown of thorns and blood just coming down his face. And it really is an image which is pretty brutal and graphic. And it was one that always kind of pained him. She had so much sorrow in her life that this was an image that just didn't need to be there in his opinion. So for her birthday, he showed up and he had roughly the same size framed, this beautiful frame, an image of the happy-go-lucky Jesus, the Jesus that is also just of his head. It's a close-up of him smiling or almost seemingly laughing, and he was excited to provide this for her, and it wasn't until he went to visit with her again, weeks later, that he walked in, and the very first thing he sees is on the mantle there is still the bleeding Jesus with his crown of thorns. And tucked away on a wall in a back room is the image that he had provided her. And he said something. He decided to say, he said, I don't understand, this image you have that is so hard on the eyes that it's painful. Why do you have that in such a prominent place within your home that you have to see and walk by so many times every day? And she took a moment, and what her response was really important. She took a minute and she said, Father, I walk down every day and I stand in front of this image of Jesus, and I think to myself, my husband is an alcoholic. My daughter is on the streets, and I have not seen my son in years. And I work 3 jobs in order to keep everything afloat. And I stand here and I pray and I look at him and I think to myself, if you were willing to do that for me, then I can continue to do this for you and for my family for another day. And as I said, that's a story that has just always stayed with me. And I thought about that story. I thought about that story during the staff meeting, honestly. And as I went through, the next several days thinking about Mary, I kept thinking of that, and it led me to think of an image, which is similar in some ways. That years ago, well, really since I began working at St. Charles, I have brought students to the School of the Americas Protest, and for years it was at their flagship school, which is located in Columbus, Georgia. But for 3 years, we attended this where they relocated to the U.S.-Mexico border in Nogales, Arizona. The first year we brought students, Kathy Sudo and I were the two chaperones, and we were driving back from Nogales to Tucson, where we would stay, where our hotel was, which was about an hour drive. We stopped at the San Javier Mission because we had looked into it and knew that there was Mass at a Franciscan mission, and we were there about an hour early. And there wasn't a lot there. It's just a big, probably one of arguably the most beautiful church I've ever walked into. We walked in, we knew we had an hour to kill, and off to the right, there was just, wasn't a mountain. It was more like a big hill, but there was a path, and it looked like a little kind of hiking trail and we had about an hour to kill, so I just told the group, why don't we go explore and see what's over here. And we walk up, and then to the left, there's the path kind of wraps around, and on the very top of this hill, there's a big cross, and so we figured something connected to the mission. And to the left, there is a really beautiful shrine to Mary. There's a big. There's a statue of Mary behind this black gate, and then people have left flowers and a lot of notes, some of which I remember reading were relatively personal, and rosary beads and things like that. And I remember being so taken by that, and I remember thinking that we're not 30-40 minutes removed from the U.S.-Mexico border, and how many migrants have passed by, and how many migrants have seen this shrine, and for them, what I imagine Mary would represent to them. For so many of them, there's this image, and for me in that moment of vulnerability, thinking about her, she is the mother who is afraid of becoming a mother. That scripture where she's told that she's going to have Jesus, and that fear, and the willingness to move forward despite her fear, because it's what she's being called to by God. It's what she needs to do for her family and her faith. And throughout Scripture, we have this image of Mary watching and supporting her son, but all too often watching brutal things happen to him. She was a witness to her son's crucifixion, and again, for me, I think of the context of migration, and I had planned. I think part of this too is I had planned to go back to Arizona in just a couple weeks, and that's obviously something that will not happen now. But I think about the experience that so many of our brothers and sisters throughout Central and South America have of the experience of that image of Mary, of families who watch and sometimes don't even have the ability to watch. They just know that their sons and their daughters have gone in search of more, in an effort to put food on the table, to put a home on their land. They've put themselves in harm's way. And I think about Mary, and the image of how much comfort that would be to me in that place if I were there, knowing that she stood as a witness to watch what her son was compelled to do by his faith, despite the fact that I'm sure that as a mother, she all too often wanted to intervene and stop and prevent this and save him. But she stood strong and supported him in that way. And that's an image that I can personally wrap my head around, and it's one that brought me comfort as I thought of it bringing, again, our brothers and sisters on the other side of the border some comfort as they passed along that road. So that's what I have for my reflection on Mary today. Once again, I feel like I always end the same way, but it's probably the most appropriate way. I hope that all of you are staying safe and are well, and for those of you who are living with family members, I hope that this is an opportunity where you are in fact thriving and enjoying. I had some of the confirmation, the interviews with the confirmation candidates today via Zoom, and that is my experience. I see it's with an 8th grader and a parent, and I see a lot of families who, I had one with both parents, the older sister and the candidate, and you can tell they are in this moment being, as a faith community within their homes. They're getting closer, not further. And please, know that you are spiritually close. Our staff continues to try to be spiritually close with our Catholic family, and I look forward very much to the time that I see all of you in the hallways of our church. And until next week, stay safe, and I will see you soon.